We're constantly told that AI is basically magic. It creates art, writes code, and it all just seems to happen out of thin air. But what if that's all just one big illusion? Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at the real physical price of that magic. A cost that you can actually measure in minerals pulled from the earth, fresh water, and just staggering amounts of energy.
And look, this isn't just a hunch. Professor Kate Crawford, who's one of the leading researchers in this field, she puts it perfectly. She says the biggest trick being played on us is this idea that AI is immaterial, that it's just code in the cloud. So, that forces us to ask a really important question. If AI isn't some weightless, magical thing, then what does code in the cloud actually cost us? What's the real planetary price tag for every single search we make, every image we generate, and every conversation we have with it?
The truth is, we're living through one of the biggest industrial build-outs in a century. AI is anything but weightless. It's a massive physical infrastructure project. We love the metaphor that AI is an extension of the human brain. Something abstract, clean, maybe even a little intellectual. But the reality is way more grounded than that. It's much more accurate to think of it as an extension of the Earth itself, literally built from its minerals, cooled by its water, and powered by its energy grids.
And to get a sense of the scale here, just look at a state like Virginia. Right now, a full 25% of all its electricity is being sucked up by data centers, the actual physical buildings where AI lives. And get this, that's on track to double, to hit 50% in just a few years. This isn't some far-off problem. It is happening right now.
Okay, so let's actually break down this planetary cost. It really comes down to three main things that cover AI's entire life cycle, from birth to operation.
So, from the ground up, you can really understand AI's planetary footprint by looking at these three things: minerals, water, and energy. It literally starts deep inside the Earth and ends up putting this huge drain on our power grids.
It all starts with minerals. Every single AI chip, the very brain of the operation, starts its life in a mine. And that process puts this incredible strain, not just on the environment, but really importantly, on the people who have to work in these often dangerous and exploitative conditions to get those raw materials out. So once those chips are made, they get packed by the tens of thousands into these massive data centers. And they just devour energy 24/7. All that power creates a ton of heat, which means they have to be constantly cooled with fresh water, a resource that, we all kind of need to survive.
And this isn't some abstract problem that happens somewhere else. This infrastructure often gets built right next to vulnerable communities, and they're the ones who bear the immediate cost, breathing in the pollution that comes from our collective demand for more and more powerful AI.
Okay, so what about the obvious solution, right? Why not just make AI more efficient, make it greener? Well, the tech industry loves to talk about that, but it leads to this really surprising kind of counterintuitive paradox.
It's an idea that goes all the way back to the 1800s called Jevons paradox, and it was first noticed with coal. The core idea sounds complicated, but it's actually incredibly simple and, well, a little bit weird.
The logic basically goes like this. When you make a technology more efficient, it gets cheaper to use. Think about getting more power out of the same lump of coal.
And what do we humans do when something gets cheaper and easier? We use a lot more of it. We find new ways to use it, we build it into everything, and pretty soon, any savings you might have had in total consumption are completely wiped out.
And this is precisely where it connects back to AI. As these systems get more efficient and cheaper to run, they're not just for special tasks anymore. They're being embedded into absolutely everything: our email, our search, our social media. And that drives the total planetary demand way, way higher than ever before. It is, as she says, Jevons paradox on steroids.
So, if making AI more efficient isn't the magic fix we hoped for, why aren't we making different choices? Well, a big part of the answer has to do with geopolitics, and a really powerful but really misleading argument.
There's this very strong narrative being pushed right now that frames this as an either-or choice. We can either win the global AI race to protect our national security, or we can protect the planet. It's set up as this impossible choice where, the planet just has to lose.
But here's the thing, this is a completely false choice. Just look at what America's biggest competitor is doing. China is investing in renewables at an absolutely unbelievable scale, not just because they care about the climate, but because they understand a fundamental truth. Clean energy is a massive competitive advantage. It's a national security advantage, it gives you energy independence, and it lowers your costs in the long run.
And all of this, it brings us to the real heart of the problem.
this immense environmental cost of AI. It's not really about your personal choices as a user. It's about something much, much bigger.
We're often made to feel like it's our fault for using these amazing tools. But this is not a personal consumption issue. It is a structural design failure. It's about how this entire system is being built from the top down.
In fact, this is an old playbook. The whole idea of a personal carbon footprint, that wasn't an idea that came from environmentalists. It was an idea that was popularized by the fossil fuel industry specifically to shift the focus away from them, the corporations, and put all the responsibility and guilt onto individuals. And we are seeing that exact same deflection of responsibility happening right now with AI.
Ultimately, this was never about being for or against AI. That's the wrong conversation. It's about demanding that we ask the right questions before it's too late. Who is this technology actually being designed to serve? And who is being forced to bear the costs? Answering that is the very first step toward demanding a system that's designed for all of us.